Hello, 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 hello. Okay, now it's hmm. so. Good morning, folks. Let's see. Today, we are just going through this useState hook, and here I was just checking it out. So, yesterday, this is where we left off. Let's start with this read aloud. A local mutation, your component's little secret. In the above example, the problem was that the component changed a pre-existing variable while rendering. Uh, this one This is often called mutation. To make it sound a bit scarier, pure functions don't mutate variables outside of the function scope or objects that were created before the call. That makes them impure. However, it's completely fine to change variables and objects that you have just created while rendering. In this example, you create empty array, assign it to a cups variable, and then push a dozen cups into it. So here I have a cup component. I'm passing guest as a props. T guest one, and inside my T gathering component, I have empty arrays cups, and I am looping three cups to 12. What I'm doing is pushing the cup component inside this. I guess is what I and return cups. Okay. If the cups variable or the empty array were created outside of the T gathering function, this would be a huge problem. You would be changing a pre-existing object by pushing items into that array. However, it's fine because you have created them during the same render inside T gathering. Well, anyway, the convention is to name state variables like something. Yes, I guess we go through this. So let's see. Yeah, I also go through this here. Updating state based on the previous state. I think I also go through this. Plus, okay. Is using updater always preferred? Yeah, something like that. Call your updated files and respond very yeah. Is using an updater always preferred? You might hear a recommendation to always write code like this. If the state you are setting is calculated from the previous state, there is no harm in it. But it is also not always necessary. In most cases, there is no difference between these two approaches. React always makes sure that for intentional user actions like clicks, the age variable state variable would be updated before the next click. This means there is no risk of a click handler seeing a state variable age at the beginning of the event handler. However, if you do multiple updates within the same event, updaters can be helpful. They are also helpful if accessing the state variable itself is inconvenient. You might run into this when optimizing re-renders. If you prefer consistency over slightly more verbose syntax, it's reasonable to always write an updater if the state you are setting is calculated from the previous state. If it's calculated from the previous state of some other state variable, you might want to combine them into one object and use a reducer. I haven't used reducer. Hmm. Component with many state updates spread across many event handlers can get overwhelming. For these cases, you can consolidate all the state update logic outside your component in a single function called reducer. What a reducer function is, how to refactor use state to use reducer, when to use reducer, how to write one as well. Consolidate state logic with reducer. As your components grow in complexity, it can get harder to see at a glance all the different ways in which a component state gets updated. For example, the task app component below holds an array of tasks Hmm. And uses three different event handlers to add, remove, and edit task. So let's say delete. Let me get this code. Task function handle add task, handle change task, and handle delete task. Yeah. Uh, drag itinerary add task. This is the task that I am going to show it, and I have by default this initial task here. Each of its event handlers calls set task in order to update the state update the state. Yep. As this component grow, so does the amount of state logic sprinkled throughout it. To reduce this complexity and keep all your logic in an easy to access place, you can move that state logic into a single function outside your component called reducer. Reducers are a different way to handle state. You can migrate from useState to useReducer in three steps. Move from setting state to dispatching action. Write a reducer function. Use the reducer from your component. Step 1. Move from setting state to dispatching action. Your event handlers currently specify what to do by setting state. Inside my all the three functions, handle add task, handle change task. Yes, I'm working with set task. Remove all the state setting logic. What you are left with are three event handlers. Handle task. Okay, it's called when the user presses add. Handle change is when user toggles a task or press save. Handle delete is called when the user presses delete. Yep. Managing state with the reducers is slightly different from directly setting state. Instead of telling React what to do by setting state, you specify what the user just did by dispatching actions from your event handlers. The state update logic will live elsewhere. So instead of setting task via an event handler, you are dispatching an added, change, deleted task action. This is more descriptive of the user's intent. Function handle add task, function handle change task. Okay, so here I write it something like this. Hmm. So this is something I can work on. So let me plug this into here. Okay, for that, let me remove all the unnecessary inside exp. I do this. I delete this. I delete this. I delete assets. Then inside my main.jsx, I okay. I did something I shouldn't have done. Okay, I delete this. Then I delete this. Then I delete this. I have app.jsx. So inside this, I remove this, and I also remove this section and stuff like that. I remove this as well, and let's say I remove this as well. Now, now let's say task list.js add a task. Mhm. Okay, let me quickly write this and see what am I actually getting at. Okay, inside my main.jsx, I would like to remove this file and add a task. Well, this is not being helpful. Add task is not defined. Mm, my add task component and task list component. Mm. What do you mean? They are just JavaScript files. Okay, these guys. Mm, they don't even give full this. Uh, let's see if I can quickly check it. They don't even give this all files as well. So even if someone want to check it, they check immediately. Say accept all inside this task list. Add a task dot js. Okay. What do you want me to do? Add a task. First, let me let me do few things. Hmm. Uh, my throat is still not good. Well, anyway, add a task.js. So here I'm gonna add task.js, and inside that, what I will do is copy this, and I will another create add task list.js, task list.js. Let me quickly do this. Yep, because those are JSX files. Yep. So, um, inside this, let's say my app, I have this add task.jsx, and what it does is, let me format this. Let me format this as well, and this as well. Okay, so it do have on edit task, input, and button. Okay, let me comment this out quickly. Add remaining part. No. Add task and list component. Now, let me see this. Okay, if I say I have to do 100 push-ups. Okay, if I say edit 100 push-ups, no, I would like to do 200 push-ups. I say okay, so it's saved. Okay, now we can go on here. So they want me to do is remove all state setting logic and turn it into a dispatch. So let's say this is something I haven't seen before. Handle add a task. So they what they want me to do is this handle this remove this as well, remove set. So basically my setter functions, and inside them I would like to add dispatch event, dispatch event boolean. The dispatch event method of the event target sends an event to the object synchronously, invoking the affected event listeners in the appropriate order. The normal event processing rules, including the capturing and optional bubbling phase, also apply to event dispatch manually with an dispatch event. Okay, let's see. I really don't know what does that means. Inside the dispatch, when I'm writing, it's calling me to. Okay, let's say type event type added. ID is next. ID increment and text to any kind of text. Inside it, I will have dispatch event type change task is to task and handle delete. So I will have same dispatch event inside object. I will have type which will say deleted, and I will have ID which will have my task ID. Okay, I did it just as they told me to do. The object you pass to dispatch is called an action. This object, this object is called an action. Okay. Function handle delete task, which is passing task ID. Inside that I have my dispatch event, and this action object, it is a regular JavaScript object. Yep, nothing more than that. I am passing a type and an ID. You decide what to put in it, but generally it should contain the minimal information about what happened. Like say if I am working on a delete feature, then it should be showcase the something related to delete, like I'm removing something, right? So let's say you will add the dispatch function itself in a later step. Note, an action object can have any shape. By convention, it is a common to give it a string type that describes what happened, and pass any additional information in other fields. The type is just specific to a component. So in this example, either added or added task would be fine. Choose a name that says what happened. Hmm. Step 2. Write a reducer function. So a reducer function is see a reducer function is where you will put your state logic. It takes two arguments, the current state and the action object, and it returns the next state. React will set the state to what you return from the reducer. To move your state setting logic from your event handlers to a reducer function in this example, you will declare the current state task as the first argument. Declare the action object as the second argument. Return the next state from that user which React will set the state to. So let's say I created another function called function task reducer task action normal JavaScript function. Inside them, I'm checking if else. So my first condition is I'm checking on action dot type. If it's added, then what I would like to do is return array task the previous, and inside that I would like to update action dot id my text action dot text and done a property that says what actually happened. But even before inside that task, I don't think I have done. Hmm. Let's see where this goes. And let's say action dot type. Action dot type is change. So inside that, what I would like to return is tasks dot map if t dot id is equal to action dot task dot id. Then I would like to do a few things. Return action dot task, like it's the same as then the task itself. And in else, sorry, in again else say action dot type is equal to deleted. Then what I would like to do is return task dot filter t dot id action dot id, and inside my else, what I would like to do is throw new error unknown actions actions dot type. So basically the logic that we were building inside set task is now inside this my task reducer function, because the reducer function takes state task as an argument. You can declare it outside of your component. This decreases the indentation level and can make your code easier to read. Yep, task is taking there, and for each action type. Hmm. I am just looking at these things. Notes. The code above uses if else statements, but it's a convention to use switch cases. Yep. If yeah, I guess that is optimal way to do it. Why? Because since I have a type each type, so I will go by switch cases. Case if added, then do this. If case is changed, then do this. If case is deleted, then do this. And default, do this. We recommend wrapping each case block into the object curly braces so that variables declared inside of different cases don't clash with each other. Also, a case should usually end with a return. If you forget to return, the code will fall through to the next case, which can lead to mistakes. If you're not yet comfortable with switch statement, using if else is completely fine. Okay. Mm. Why are reducers called this way? Yeah. Although reducers can reduce the amount of code inside your component, they are actually named after the reduce operation that you can perform on arrays. The reduce operation lets you take an array and accumulate a single value out of many. The function you pass to reduce is known as reducer function. It takes the results so far and the current item, and then it returns the next result. React reducers are an example of the same idea. They take the state so far and the action and return the next state. In this way, they accumulate actions over time into state. You could even use the reduce method with an initial state and an array of actions to calculate the final state by passing your reducer functions to it. Let's say inside my this index.js, I have this task reducer. Mhm. Actions I have type added, type deleted, type added. Okay, um, reducer task reducer function and the initial state. Initial state is empty. Okay, so inside my task reducer function, I have switch case which takes and perform everything. Show more, show more. You probably wouldn't need you probably wouldn't need to do this yourself, but this is similar to what React does. Step 3. Use the reducer from your component. Finally, you need to hook up the task reducer to your component. Import the use reducer hook from React. Import use reducer from React. Then you can replace use state with, use reducer like so. Parameter 1 is not of type event. Okay, so now this here what I will use is use reducer. So now it will take task reducer and my initial state, which is in the task list, which is that. Fail to execute dispatch event on event target parameter one is not a type of event. Parameter one is not a type of uh, event. Is that from React? Okay. So dispatch here they want me to use dispatch. Now will it work? Okay, okay. So what I would like to do is with use reducer like so, turn this into this. Okay, let me have a two. No, actually, let me have a round short break, 5 minute break, so I can better understand. Let's back. Let's back. Let's see. Let me pause this and get back at what I was doing here. Use reducer hooks is similar to use state. You must pass it an initial state and it returns a stateful value and a way to set state. In this case, the dispatch function, but it's a little different. The use reducer hook takes two arguments, a reducer function and an initial state, and returns a stateful value and a dispatch function to dispatch user actions to the correct. This dispatch, because that is what I exactly this dispatch event inside this. Let me do this. Yeah. So let me remove this and update task and to use reducer. This was fun. Huh. Okay, if you want, you can even move the reducer to a different file. I can. Okay, task reducer. Okay, let's see that. Let me do this as well. So what I can do is task reducer this and I can do this. Export default task reducer, and I can bring that here. Import task reducer, and will it work exactly as it is? Yep. Or separate task reducer. So okay, component logic can be easier to read when you separate concerns like this. Now the event handlers only specify what happened by dispatching action, and the reducer function determines how the state updates in response to them. Comparing use state and use reducer. Reducers are not without downsides. Here is a few ways you can compare them. Code size, generally with use state. Comparing use state and code size. Generally, with use state, you have to write less code upfront. With a use reducer, you have to write both a reducer function and a dispatch actions. However, use reducer can help cut down on the code if many event handlers modify state in a similar way. Readability. Use state is very easy to read when state updates are simpler. When they get more complex, they can bloat your component's code and make it difficult to scan. In this case, use reducer lets you cleanly separate the how of update logic from the what happened of event handlers. Debugging. Okay, when you have a bug with use state, it can be difficult to tell where the state was set incorrectly and why. With use reducer, you can add a console log into your reducers to see every state update and why it happened due to which action. If each action is correct, you will know that the mistake is in the reducer logic itself. However, you have to step through more code than with useState. Testing. A reducer is a pure function that doesn't depend on your component. This means that you can export and test it separately in isolation. While generally it's best to test component in a more realistic environment for complex state update logic, it can be useful to assert that your reducer returns a particular state for a particular initial state and action. Personal preferences. Some people like reducers, others don't. That's okay. It's matter of preferences. You can always convert between useState and reducer back and forth. They are equivalent. We recommend using a reducer if you often encounter bugs due to incorrect state updates in some component and want to introduce more structure to its code. You don't have to use reducer for everything. Feel free to mix and match. You can even use state inducer in the same component. Writing reducers well. Keep these two tips in mind when writing reducers. Reducers must be pure, similar to a state updater function. Reducers run during rendering. Actions are queued until the next render. This means that reducer must be pure. Same input always running consideration with immer. What is that? Mm. Okay, before that, any of this, there is a couple of things. Let's see. Uh, Give me small summary of this page, and then give me core things that I should keep in mind while learning. Use reducer hook and make it into Anki flashcard that I can add right now. Flashcards with QA. Let's see. This is really fun way to interact with because see, I have made an habit out of myself that even if any kind of new things while learning React in so much deeply, I would like to have my Anki's flashcard right with me so I can understand what exactly I am doing and what exactly do I need for a particular concept to be like keep mindful of that. Okay, now let me open my Anki quickly. Anki flashcard. What problem does user research solve compared to useState? It consolidates complex or repetitive. Damn my scroll. It consolidate complex or repetitive state update logic into single reducer function, making code easier to read, debug, and haste. Okay, inside my React.js, let me add this. Let me add this. Okay, what problem does use reducer solve compared to use state? It consolidates complex or repetitive state update logic into a single reducer function, making code easier to read, debug, and test. What does use reducer return? An array state dispatch where state is the current value and sends and dispatch sends let's say action to the reducer. What are the rules for writing reducers? So reducers must be pure functions, no side effects, no mutations. Same inputs always produce the same outputs. How do event handlers work with use reducer? Event handlers dispatch actions objects specifically describing what happened and how they use a type property action.type and the reducer So decide how the state changes. Why is user useful for debugging and testing? Let's say reducers are pure functions that can be tested in isolation, and logging actions makes it easy to trace state changes. Would you like me to also create a mnemonic hook like reducers? Nah, I guess it's fine. It's already so many more. Okay, this was good. Use a reducer. So the difference between passing an updater and passing the next state directly. hmm Updater and uh, let me give it the code. Uh, Sorry. Mm, Inside my counter, I have a state variable called age, which is okay. So let's say give it a 20. So increment is this counter. When I click on this plus, sorry, I'm calling the increment function three times. One time, three time, one time, three time. Okay. Next example. This example does not pass the operator function, so the plus 3 doesn't work as intended. Okay, so let me, so the initial value would be this. Now it will work, right? Surface 20. Now let's see if it's it. And if I just remove this and reload it again, then it doesn't work. Got it. Updating objects and arrays in state. You can put objects and arrays into state in React. State is considered read only, so you should place it rather than mutate your existing objects. For example, if you have a form object in state, don't mutate it. Form.first name, something like this. Rather, do this. Replace state with new object. Set form. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. I just got the parcel. So, okay. Inside set form, what I would like to do is, so this is what I have like used a few times. If I have to like update any kind of setter functions, then what I do is take previous value, and update the first name. Update the fields that I want to update it. Read, update objects in state, and updating arrays in state to learn more. Okay, uh, let's see. In this example, the form state variable holds an object. Each input has a change handler that calls set form. Set form with the next state of the entire form. The form spread syntax ensures that the state object is replaced rather than mutated. Barbara first. Let's see if I say pop do. Hmm. So let me see the code. Okay, so inside this set form, what I'm doing is first e dot target dot value, the value form dot. Okay, setting the form this as the initial form. What was my previous value? And inside this p, I am displaying it with this. Okay, okay. Mm, oh, what is the next example? Uh, Form nested objects. Okay, this is called Blue Nana by Nikki the Cent file located in Hamper. Uh, let's see. In this example, the state is more nested. When you update a nested state, you need to create a copy of the object you are updating, as well as any objects containing in it on the way upwards. Speed updating a nested object. Okay, inside this is multiple function form person set Nikki name, and this artwork contains title, city, and image. Okay, handle name change, handle. Inside this, I can have, and now I have a list array. In this example, the to-do state variable holds an array. Each button handler calls set to-dos with the next version of that array. The to-do spread syntax to-dos.map, to-dos.filter ensures the state array is replaced rather than mutated. Ready? Save. Initial to-do handle set to-dos. So inside this array of objects, hmm, next ID. So increment it. Title. Okay, so if I'm dealing with lists, this is how I should do it, right? Writing concise update logic with immer. Immer, use immer. Exactly is this. Use immer to drive state with derive or drive state with React. So inside my app.jsx, use immer. Initial list. This is next ID is 3. List update list. Avoiding recreating the initial state. React saves the initial state once and ignores it on the next renders. To-do list. To-dos, set to-dos, use state creation list to-dos. Although the result of create initial to-dos is only used for the initial render, you are still calling this function on every render. This can be wasteful if it's creating large arrays or performing expensive calculations. To solve this, you may pass it as an initializer function to use state instead. Notice that you are passing create initial to dos, which is the function itself, and not create initial to dos. which the result of calling it. If you pass a function to useState, React will only call it during initialization. React may call your initialization twice, yep, in development to verify that are pure. The difference between passing an initializer and passing the initial state directly. Passing the initializer function. Okay, give me the full uh, create initial to do's. I am. I don't want to like get there. I just want a 12 list that is good for me. Reload. Item 12 is good. Oh. So I'm pushing this inside initial to do. And now for rendering purpose to-do list, I'm using useState create initial to-dos, which is this. If I say something here, so it will get on top of it. Okay. Mm, set state, set text. Passing the initial state directly. Mm, okay. So they now want me to do 10, and if I will let this, so they initial state directly, like I'm just calling the function here. Resetting the key. Okay, folks, I think this is it for today's stream. Mm, So, in my next stream, we will start with this resetting state with key. This use state is really long. I just didn't know it before, but this is something else, I guess.